I know you're out there. I know that you're afraid. You're afraid of us. You're afraid of change. I don't know the future. I didn't come here to tell you how this is going to end. I came here to tell you how it's going to begin. I'm going to hang up this phone, and then I'm going to show these people what you don't want them to see. A world without rules and controls, without borders or boundaries. A world where anything is possible. Where we go from there is a choice I leave to you.
The Krisanne Hall Show.
Any varmint that crosses that lady's path has met its match. Come on!
Rise and shine, liberty-loving patriots. What a glorious and marvelous day we have today. The Republicans have taken Congress.
Happy days are here again. The skies above are clear again. Let us sing a song of cheer again. Happy days.
Yes, you heard it right. The Republicans have seized both the House and the Senate with an amazing majority. The world is right. All is well. Everything will now go right with this government. We will now operate constitutionally. We have the party of the Constitution in control of the House and the Senate. Can you just imagine the bright future that we have before us? No more excuses. No more debates. No more obstruction. 246 House seats. The largest majority since World War II. And now, Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, who has controlled the Senate since 2007, will lose his seat. No more Democrats impeding the Republicans in our restoration of the Republic and liberty. Listen, this is an amazing day. This means we will impeach Obama. You know why? Because the entire excuse that we have heard for the last 6 years was this: well, I would love to do something like that, but since we don't have the Senate, then we will never be allowed to impeach Obama. We could do that in the House, which we would want to do, but the Senate would never go along. Well, guess what? Now they have it. Business number one. Article 2, Section 4, impeachment of Obama. You watch the headlines. You watch the headlines when we engage in our first control of the House and the Senate. The first order of business will be the impeachment of Obama. Because that's what they said they would do. Well, we would do that if we had the Senate. And now you have the Senate. It is time to end the criminal activity. And happy days will dictate that this will happen. Not only that, John Boehner and Trey Gowdy don't have to sue the president for unconstitutional actions anymore. They don't have to sue the president for executive orders because they can impeach the president now, and they can defund any activity in the executive branch that is unconstitutional. Article 1, well, technically speaking, let's just be technically speaking here, they had the power to do that before they had the Senate, because Article 1, Section 7, the defunding of any activity in the federal government lies in the hands of the House alone. All they needed was their Republican majority in the House to defund this unconstitutional executive actions. But, well, it just, as Representative Chris Gibson told me in New York, he said, well, Miss Hall, you just don't understand how it really works. Because, you see, we can't operate constitutionally because we don't have the Senate. So now you have the Senate. And so now there are no excuses. You can defund. They will. No, they've made these promises. We would love to do that, Miss Hall. You just don't understand how it really works. And so now, watch all of this legislation coming from the House with ultimate booming authority, ultimate booming majority, get swept through the Senate, and we are going to defund all of the president's executive orders right now. We're going to end the threat of ISIS in America, and probably globally too. We will end the threat of ISIS with a clear and concise action. No more of this wishy-washy foreign policy. We are going to now talk softly and carry a big stick. We are now going to be a booming presence in the global arena. Watch it now. We have the House and the Senate. We outweigh the president. The president can do nothing without the House and the Senate. He's not going to be there anymore because the first order of business is impeachment. And if they work real fast, we can impeach Eric Holder too. But we are going to be such a presence on the globe that we will no longer have a threat of ISIS anywhere, and world peace will reign. No, that's what they promised us. That's what the campaign promises were. You help us get control of the Senate, and we will have a foreign policy that makes America safe again. Wow, that's sort of a scary thing for me to say out loud. I remember the last time we had a Republican House and a Republican Senate, and we had to keep us safe. We got the Patriot Act. Well, let's just not talk about that because we are happy days here. We are too happy to be living today, and we are so excited about what's happening. Guess what happens now? We will actually have congressional hearings with teeth. We couldn't do anything with our congressional hearings before. They were just dog and pony shows because Congress has no power. You know, the House has no power without the Senate, and now we have the Senate. We can get to the bottom of Benghazi. We can stop the IRS in their obstruction and their mystery disappearing emails. We can really get control of HHS. Oh, this could be a major sweep of the corruption in the executive branch, one like you and I have never seen before. Can you imagine? Welfare reform, the end of Common Core, the end of fundings of abortion by federal dollars, free market expansion, the end of EPA raids on Amish farmers. Oh my goodness, the end of IRS abuse in the name of civil forfeitures, like the ones used to seize the life savings of that small business owner, that woman that we talked about in Iowa who had committed no crime. She had just made deposits less than what our IRS would know about. Structured depositing. No. We're going to end. Yes. We're going to end the arming of executive agencies. All of this seizure of our ammunition and firearms by the Department of Homeland Security, the Social Security Administration, the Department of Education, the EPA, the FBI. No more SWAT teams. We're going to end the arming of these agencies. Oh, wait a minute. Now, wait. We have control of Congress, complete control of Congress by the party of the Constitution. The party of the Constitution who has dedicated in their platform of 2012 to restore the constitutional nature of our government. We're not just simply going to disarm these executive agencies. We're going to dissolve them. Absolutely. We are going to dissolve executive agencies that are unconstitutional. Well, that would be the platform of a political party who wants to restore the government back to its constitutional foundations. We're going to get rid of the EPA. Isn't that awesome? We don't have to control them. We're going to end them. We're going to end the FDA. We're going to end. Oh my goodness. Here's what we can do. We can audit the feds. We can end the control of the Federal Reserve and the return to the free market system. We have control of Congress. We can do all these things. No more excuses. All of your beautiful NRA-endorsed politicians have won. That means we can end federal gun control laws. We can get rid of the provisions in the NDAA that allow for Congress to and the executive branch to indefinitely detain citizens. Oh, here's another one. We will stop the Department of Justice from secretly assassinating people without any warrant, without any probable cause. Oh, now, wait. We will end unconstitutional armed conflicts. There will be no abuse of war powers acts. We will return to the constitutional foundation that says, guess what? Only Congress can declare war, and there'll be no action of war without Congress. We can do all this now. We have control of Congress. There's no stopping us. There'll be no more abuse by the executive branch. No more fundamental progressive principles pushed by the executive branch and the Democratic Party because the Republicans are now in power. We can end the control that the federal government has over our government schools because the government will know that's unconstitutional. No more Common Core. No more health food Nazis. No more control of religion in the schools. No more pushing through the federal agenda from the Muslim Brotherhood. All of this will end on day one because we have the power to do it. No more excuses. We have given them exactly what they want. And guess what? America, happy days are here again. Prosperity, security. Oh, the tears are streaming down my eyes. Liberty restored once again. Can you believe the sun is brighter today? The trees are greener today. Our children are freer today. We will end unconstitutional spending and we will end the deficit now. Join me in cheering.
Krisanne Hall Show. She's Liberty's lobbyist.
All right, Republicans. You got everything you asked for. So let's see what happens. But I'm going to make a bold prediction for you after all the celebration of the last section. I'm going to make a bold prediction to you. None of those things will happen. None of them. Because it's not about the Constitution. It is not about liberty. It is about power. It's about the Republicans having the same power that they've given the Democrats. That's why the Republican House would vote in majority to indefinitely detain U.S. citizens. That's why the Republican House, who had the majority to end all of this and defund all of this, could do that if they wanted to, and they did not. Here's what you're going to see. You're going to see some action. You're not going to see impeachment, because that's something they could really do without anybody else. You're not going to see Article 1, Section 7 defunding. What you're going to see is efforts to do things, straw man efforts. And then the excuse will be, well, look, we're being opposed by the president. We can't get any of this done unless you give us a Republican president. Look at how much we could do if we in 2016 could just have a Republican president. See, we have the House and the Senate, and we're working really hard, we're working to do this, but you see, we're being obstructed all the time by this powerful executive branch. And all you need to do, see what we're doing over these 2 years? We're working so hard, we're trying so hard, we just can't get anything done with the consent of the president. So you need to give us a Republican president in 2016. And once we have a Republican president in 2016, all will be good and right with the world. Watch me. Watch me be right. I hate this. That I will be right. But you watch me, I'll be right. You record this. I'm going to star this episode so that I can replay portions of this episode over the next 2 years to remind you that I said on November 5th, 2014, that guess what? This is what you will hear over the next 2 years. So let us just be clear. Let us just be clear about something. They do not need the president's approval to do anything, even if he vetoes. Who cares? Even if he vetoes, who cares? They need to do what they need to do. And they should impeach him. And then he won't be able to veto. And then they impeach every other replacement that operates just like him. Until we run out of replacements. It might do us some good to run without a president for a while. Until we can catch a snap and become a constitutionally minded people and elect someone that will actually do something. Because I guarantee you, your Republican president will be somebody like Chris Christie, Mitt Romney, Jeb Bush. Oh my goodness. I heard my governor, Rick Scott, give his victory speech last night thanking. Oh yes, we must thank Jeb Bush. You watch it. You think I'm ridiculous. Those are who your presidential candidates are going to be. Oh, sure, Rand Paul may run. But they won't let him win. It's not going to be his win. That's not going to happen. So mark my words. Nothing will be done over these next 2 years except for false moves that produce obstruction so that they can gain more power. Why? Because they don't care about liberty. They give you your campaign speeches. I am pro-life. Let's see how many pro-life legislations come through the House and the Senate now. I am pro-gun. Let's see how many endings of gun control laws come through. The dissolving of the federal gun control laws. How many of those movements come through the House and the Senate? I am for free market expansion. Let's see how much of that legislation comes through. I am for welfare reform. Let's see how much of that legislation comes through. I am for stopping the president engaging in activity overseas, in warlike activity without the consent of Congress. Let's see how much of that happens. Let's see if they actually get control of Benghazi, the IRS. Oh, we want to end the Affordable Care Act. Let's see how much legislation comes through on that. Let's see what happens. Just watch. Wait and see.
My mama always said I was born for this, and some people wouldn't like that I was different. It never really mattered how hard it would be, cause she filled me with love and the strength to lead. She said, if we were gonna be a flame, then we're gonna light a bonfire. Let it burn, let it burn. Gonna burn something down if you get it our way.
The Krisanne Hall Show. She's Liberty's lobbyist.
How long now over the next 2 years before all of the people who had to hold their nose and vote Republican so that we could have a Republican House and a Republican Senate will understand? How long before they understand that we are operating under a monolithic party, Democrat, Republican? There's no difference between Democrats and Republicans. We do not have a duopoly. We have a monolithic political party. Just one. no more. Just one. Mercy Otis Warren would have called them prostitutes for power. They're not concerned about the people. They're concerned about what power they will have when they are in government, because when you are one party, nothing ever changes. Just names. Just degrees. And so how long over these next 2 years before people stop voting by holding their nose? I am looking for a massive revolution of the mind over the next 2 years. Thomas Jefferson wrote in the Declaration of Independence, "Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty, to throw off such government, and to provide new guards for their future security." How long before we realize that the very things that our framers called absolute despotism are coming from federal government now? But over the next 2 years, I believe that there will be many who will come to the same conclusion that Patrick Henry did in 1775. "I have but one lamp," Henry said, "by which my feet are guided, and that is the lamp of experience. I know no way of judging the future but by the past. And judging by the past, I wish to know what there has been in the conduct of the government for the last 10 years to justify those hopes with which gentlemen have been pleased to solace themselves and the House. Is it that insidious smile with which our petition has been lately received? Trust it not, sir. It will prove a snare to your feet. Suffer not yourselves to be betrayed by a kiss." Henry continues and says, "What shall we try? Argument? Sir, we've been trying that argument for the last 10 years. Have we anything new to offer upon the subject? Nothing. We have held the subject up in every light in which it is capable, but it has all been in vain. Shall we resort to entreaty and humble supplication? What terms shall we find which we have not already been existed? Let us not, I beseech you, sir, deceive ourselves. We have done everything that could be done to avert the storm which is now coming on. We have petitioned, we have remonstrated, we have supplicated, we have prostrated ourselves before the throne, and have implored its interposition to arrest the tyrannical hands of the ministry and parliament. Our petitions have been slighted. Our remonstrances have produced additional violence and insult. Our supplications have been disregarded, and we have been spurned with contempt from the very foot of the throne. In vain, after these things, may we indulge in the fond hope. I believe after 2 years, we will realize that we have done everything that we could possibly do to maintain a party perspective, to maintain any hope in the party system. And we will have to admit at that point in time that every entreaty, every humble supplication, every petition, every remonstrance, everything we have done, laying prostrate before our political champions, have all been slighted, insulted, disregarded, and spurned. And we will abandon the party system and go to a liberty-first system. Liberty over security, principle over party, truth over personalities. We will once again, I pray, learn over the next 2 years that party is not our answer, that only liberty. And we will refuse to hold our noses any longer. This is the final test for the Republican Party. We have given you what you want. Don't ask for anything more. And the moment they ask, well, we can't do this until we get a Republican president in the White House, the minute that statement comes out of your mouth, you know that they are liars. You know. And you must trumpet this from the tops of the buildings, mountains, and throughout the valleys. And we must abandon this. I want you to go look at a website, Open Debates 2016. Open Debates 2016. Go look at it. Go research it. You're going to want to know about this over the next 2 years, Open Debates 2016. Because guess what? We have a House and a Senate now, and they have an obligation. They have an obligation. And we can restore the Republic with a House and a Senate dedicated to the Constitution. It's about time we recognize what tyranny is. But while we're resting for the next 2 years, how about we do something really crazy and radical? How about we take control of our state and local governments? Do you know, I was appalled looking at my Florida ballot. Look at statewide Florida ballots. How many people in our House, in our Florida House and Senate, ran unopposed? Is that what your ballots looked like? Did your ballots show unopposed, 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 unopposed? That's absolutely ridiculous, and that's shameful. No politician should run unopposed. That's not a politician. No. That's a ruler. That is a baron or a lord. That's not a politician. Our politicians should always be opposed. I don't care if their opposition is no good, but they should always be opposed. They should always feel challenged. But now because these people ran unopposed, guess what? I don't know, man. What's going to happen? A boldness, a confidence. I shudder for the confidence that our Attorney General Pam Bondi has received in her reelection. She actually ran opposed, which I imagine is going to make her even more arrogant and tyrannical. But she was the Republican, so we had to vote for her. We couldn't have voted for anybody else. There was a third-party candidate that appeared to be very liberty-minded, and we couldn't vote for him because we have to vote for the Republican. The Republican, who, by the way, argued against the Second Amendment in the Supreme Court of Florida, argued against the Fourth Amendment in the Supreme Court of Florida, opposed the Second Amendment Preservation Act in Florida. This is our Republican Attorney General. Yes, she's a tyrannical narcissist. And we reelected her because she was the Republican. Look at her record. She hasn't even been a Republican her whole life. I've not been a Republican all my life, but I have a transformation testimony. What is her transformation testimony? Oh, I wanted to run for office, and that was the power they told me to run for. That's exactly it. Well, this is what we need to understand. Tyranny on the face of parties. And we need to take control of our local governments. Let me tell you about this story. Florida police handed out citations and threatened to Florida police. Now, this is what I'm talking about, getting control of your local government. Florida police handed out citations and threatened to arrest 2 priests and a 90-year-old veteran for feeding the homeless. A recently passed city ordinance makes sharing food a citable offense. This is crazy. A chorus of protests erupt from the crowd. Shame on you for arresting an elderly man. This man is a World War II veteran. He says, we're simply trying to feed people who are hungry. To criminalize that is contrary to everything that I stand for. It is absolutely amazing. This man says, I have lived through World War II. I participated in the civil rights movement. This 90-year-old man. I have lived through World War II. I have participated in the civil rights movement. He said, this has not dissuaded me. This has persuaded me. has given me a resolve to continue to fight these tyrannical measures. He's like, you think throwing me in jail is going to stop me from living according to my conscience? What can they do to him in jail that he did not see in World War II? What can they do to him in jail that he did not see in the civil rights movement? You see, this is what it's going to take. People, I am sorry to give you this bad news. It's going to take people like 90-year-old Mr. Abbott, who says, when the law has become immoral, I will stand for my morality, even if it means I have to go to jail. We don't teach the truth about our revolution, so we don't understand. We teach that our revolution was about a bunch of rich white guys who didn't want to pay their taxes. Well, of course they didn't want to pay their taxes because their taxes were unconstitutionally based and tyrannically motivated. They understood that by refusing to pay taxes was their ultimate check and balance on the government. And they said, no, we will no longer consent to a government that will violate our liberty, who's going to mandate that we purchase things by law, that's going to warrantlessly search and seize our homes and our businesses. We're not going to be denied our due process, and we're not going to fund it through the payment of our taxes. And they said, consequences be as they may. Hey, you consent to everything that this government does every time you pay your taxes. But we can't really protest, can we? Because then we might go to jail. Well, guess what? 90-year-old Mr. Abbott says that's okay. Because my liberty is worth more than that.
The Krisanne Hall Show. She's Liberty's lobbyist. Krisanne Hall Show. She's Liberty's lobbyist.
So a 90-year-old man says, when the law conflicts with morality, it is an unjust law and I will not abide by it. Amazingly enough, that's exactly what Samuel Adams said on November 20th in 1772. He said, among the natural rights of the colonists are these: first, life; secondly, liberty; third, property, together with the right to support and defend them in the best manner they can. These are evident branches of, rather than deductions from, the duty of self-preservation, commonly called the first law of nature. All men, he says, have a right to remain in the state of nature as long as they please, and in case of intolerable oppression, civil or religious, to leave the society they belong to and enter into another. And when men enter into societies by voluntary consent, they have the right to demand and insist upon the performance of such conditions and previous limitations as form an equitable original compact. Every natural right not expressly given up, or from the nature of social compact necessarily ceded, remains. And all positive and civil laws should conform, as far as possible, to the laws of natural reason and equity. You see, when the laws begin to violate your conscience, and you have to choose between laws and your own morality. Frederick Bastiat wrote about this in the 1850s, stealing from Thomas Paine's Common Sense and Samuel Adams' The Laws of Man. He says there's a perversion of law. Law by no means confines itself to its proper functions, and when it has exceeded its proper functions, it has not done so merely in some inconsequential and debatable matters. The law has gone farther than this. It has acted in direct opposition to its own purpose. The law has been used to destroy its own objective. It has been applied to annihilating the justice that it was supposed to maintain, to limiting and destroying rights which its real purpose was to respect. The law has placed the collective force at the disposal of unscrupulous who wish, without risk, to exploit person, liberty, and property of others. It has converted plunder into a right in order to protect plunder. It has converted lawful defense into a crime in order to punish lawful defense. The law has been perverted by the influence of two entirely different causes, stupid greed and false philanthropy. Yeah. Why can't you feed the homeless on your own? Because that's a philanthropy that belongs to the government. And you can't go against the government's philanthropy. Well, false philanthropy is tyranny, according to Bastiat. But there's a tendency among common people, he says, to stand against unlawful laws. He says men naturally rebel against the injustice of which they are victims. Thus, when plunder is organized by law for the profit of those who make the law, all those plundered classes try somehow to enter, by peaceful or revolutionary means, into the correction of that, the making of laws. And then we end up making law and substituting law for justice. They do not abolish legal plunder. Instead, they emulate their evil predecessors by participating in this legal plunder, even though it's against their own interests. Bastiat says this will erase the distinction from everyone's conscience between justice and injustice. And we will see law as justice, and that the only way to maintain justice is through law. We will assume that things are just because the law makes them so. And then we will be forced to participate in laws that are unjust. And the people will be forced to choose between an unrespectable law and his moral sense. And that's exactly what Mr. Abbott has done. He said, this law is immoral, so I'll stick with my morality, even if you put me in jail. We are not meant to be quiet. We are supposed to be standing for liberty. Time to stand, America. Consequences be as they may. God bless.